Among those who went up to worship at the Passover festival were some Greeks. They came to Philip, who was from Galilee, and they said to him, "Sir, we wish to see Jesus." Philip went and told Andrew, and then Andrew and Philip went and told Jesus. Jesus answered them, "The hour has come for the chosen one to be glorified. Very truly, I tell you, unless a grain of wheat falls in the earth and dies, it remains just a single grain. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. Those who love their life lose it, and those who hate their life in this world will keep it for eternal life. Whoever serves me must follow me, and where I am, they will be my servant also. Whoever serves me will be honored by God. Now my soul is troubled, and what should I say? God, save me from this hour. No. It is for this reason that I have come to this hour. God, glorify your name." Then a voice came from heaven, "I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again." And the crowd standing there heard it and said it was thunder. Others said, "An angel has spoken." Jesus answered, "This voice has come for your sake, not for mine. Now is the judgment of the world. Now the ruler of this world will be driven out, and I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself." And Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death he was to die.
But we are all called to serve God faithfully in some way because we are God's beloved. We find our call to live out our belovedness by being still. In the stillness, we experience true connection with God and begin to recognize who God created us to be. We get in touch with our specific gifts and talents and even our passions. And we draw on our belovedness, and from that place, we serve. We run into problems with service because so many of us, myself included, find ourselves serving from a place of control, where we determine for ourselves our calling. We determine for ourselves who needs us and how to fulfill that need, and so on. To be sure, good things can come of that type of service. More often than not, however, that type of service is not sustainable. We run out of energy or inspiration, and we may do more harm than good. Most importantly, we miss out on the experience of living out our true calling, a calling that is based solidly in our belovedness. Only from the quiet place, where God affirms our belovedness, do we find the inspiration, the assurance, the energy, and the joy we need to serve.
Friends, can I invite you to pray with me? Let's pray together. Almighty and loving God, we are grateful for this day and for this opportunity to respond to your word. And we're grateful for those who have been faithful through generations, not only in speaking your truth, but also in writing down those experiences that those early disciples had with Jesus. Help us now as we reflect more deeply upon our belovedness, on the ways in which you call us your people. Help us to be mindful of that same spirit that touched those disciples, touching us now. And so with that, God, I pray now that you would touch my lips of clay, mold them into the words that need to be spoken this day. And may the words that come from my mouth and the meditations on each and every one of our hearts, may they be ever acceptable to you. For we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. So friends, over these last few weeks, we have been thinking about our belovedness. And both in our worship services and in our small groups here at Cathedral of Hope, we've been thinking about the belovedness not only of ourselves and those who have been followers of Jesus, but the ways in which Jesus also acknowledged his own belovedness. Those human moments of Jesus' life when the belovedness was spoken over him. We've been examining that through our sacred text, through the gospel writers, who heard over and over again, at least on a number of occasions, the Spirit of a living God speaking those words over Jesus, "You are my beloved, with whom I'm well pleased." and those words that are continually spoken over those who call themselves as followers of Jesus, acknowledging that belovedness of self, that belovedness that was given to us right at the very beginning of creation, and that belovedness that we step into over and over again in an attempt to be followers and disciples of Jesus himself. It is what Lent has become for us at Cathedral of Hope, an opportunity for us to re-examine not only our own faith and our own spirituality, but to claim for ourselves what it means to be children of a living God. And as children, as followers, as disciples of Jesus, to live more fully into our calling, more fully into our appreciation of what it means to have a spirituality that lives and breathes and has its meaning. Discipleship is about following Jesus. And discipleship is one of the ways in which we honor that relationship with God. And discipleship is what Jesus called those first followers of Jesus, as he called them from the boats, from their fishermen, to be disciples of all peoples. We claim our belovedness because God loves us. The Gospel of John would say to us over and over again, God is love, and love is God, and where love is, there is God, and where God is, there is love. It is the central theme of Scripture, that we are called not only to know love, to believe love, to embody love, but to love ourselves. And that is on the central commandment of Jesus, who calls us to love God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love our neighbor in the same ways that we have love for ourselves. Over these last few weeks, we have centered on those first two pieces of the Great Commandment, to learn to love God and to accept God's belovedness within us and to love ourselves. On this holds all the law of the Gospels, the law of God, that we might learn to love God and to love ourselves. It is in that sense of belovedness, of loving ourselves and loving God, that we step into our fullness. And today we move on in our journey to think about the ways in which we are called to be beloved in our service, to be beloved in the world. Jesus called those first disciples from those fisher boats and called them to be fishers of people, calling them out of the everyday experience and to step more fully into the passion that they were being called to. As people of God this day, we too are being called into our passion, to being called into and out of our beloved. Our belovedness doesn't just stay embodied within us, it is then overflowing out of us and into the world. It calls us into service. It calls us into that third part of the great commandment to love our neighbor. And that is the act of service. That you and I, as we embody that belovedness for ourselves, it is that act of service that we are called to make a difference in the world. Through our acts of justice, through our acts of being. And from that place of belovedness, friends, when we live from a place of belovedness, those acts of service that we get to be a part of are part of the natural calling of our lives. They're just not things that we do for work or do for volunteer activity. We do them out of a sense of passion and commitment to love our neighbor in the same way that we love ourselves. It is that act of service that calls me to always speak for those who sometimes have no voice, to be on marches and rallies and to sign petitions. It is the passion of the calling of my faith to love my neighbor that moves me to do these things. We do them because of our faith, not in spite of our faith. And when you live from the place of passion, when you live and serve from that place, our lives and the lives of those that we live among are touched in amazing ways. Because we live not just fulfilling a role, but we live knowing that we are making a difference so that the new realm of God may come here on earth as it is in heaven. A passion for service. Jesus had a passion for service, so convicted about his life, so convicted about the ways in which his life would touch the generations, that he was willing to do and be and to follow God wherever God called him. And it is with that same passion, I believe, that when we know our belovedness, that we also live and move and have our being. I've witnessed it here at Cathedral and in other places that I've served, that when people serve from that place of passion and belovedness, their volunteerism, their acts of service, their acts of generosity become something that are so embedded in them, so embodied in them, that there is nothing else that they can do. As a pastor, I know the difference between when someone is fulfilling a role of volunteerism or doing a ministry because there's a gap and someone needs to fill it, and when people are doing something because they are passionate about it. There is something different that happens when we live in that place. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm grateful for the many, many people who step into volunteer activities or are called to an act of service. And they do that because there is a need. And I'm grateful to those people who do that. But I'm also grateful and aware of the transformation that happens when we really follow our call. When we know that what we are doing, that we have been called to it, just as those disciples were called from the boat. Just as Jesus was called to live his life to the fulfillment of what God had intended for him. When we live in the ways that God intended us to do, we don't burn out. We don't get weary and tired. We don't think that somehow that what we are doing isn't making a difference. We know without a shadow of a doubt that what we are doing is making a difference. And that passion drives us. And it inspires us. It's what I see when ushers greet people into church and they have this passion, this gift of hospitality. It's the ways in which I see our lay ministers of worship serving week in and week out, never grown weary of the task because they know that what they do makes a difference. And so many other ways in our multimedia ministry and in our acts of service, we find meaning. I often say to our media team on Sunday mornings before we gather that to know that what they do on Sunday morning isn't just putting lyrics up on a screen so that we can read them, but we are making this message of God's liberating, beloved news of good news available to people all around the world, to you that are watching this service this day. And when we serve people with food and drink, when we clothe the naked and we visit those in prison, when we write an email to someone because we have a passion to be of service, the impact of what we do moves around the world. God wants each and every one of us to serve from a place of belovedness and to serve with a passion and with a commitment that we know that we are making a difference and that lives are being transformed because of it. There's a difference between our job and being of service. And sometimes those two things come together. I'm one of those lucky ones where my passion and my job come together in great ways and wonderful ways, ways that fulfill me. And hear me, it's not easy every day, but I know that ultimately that's what God has called me to do and be. And I pray that every single one of us stepping into our belovedness, acknowledging that each and every one of us is called to an act of service from that place of belovedness, that when those things come together by the divine inspiration of the Holy Spirit, that when those things come together, we do not grow weary or faint, but we run with great perseverance the race that has been set before us. We run with great perseverance because it doesn't feel like work. It feels like our call and our passion to be of service to the world. It starts by knowing your belovedness, embodying that belovedness, and acknowledging that in that belovedness there is something bigger and something greater that each of every one of us has been called to do and to be. And in this season of Lent, as we have looked at Jesus' life, as we've looked at the lives of those disciples this day who came to follow Jesus, I pray that we might have that same passion to be of service to the world through our acts of justice, through our acts of being the hands and feet of Christ in the world, by being you, authentically you, and allowing that manifestation of God's purpose set in you and set in me to lead us onward this day. Next week we'll celebrate Palm Sunday. We'll then move into Holy Week and ultimately to Easter. And our hope and our prayer here at Cathedral of Hope, United Church of Christ, is that we are using this season of Lent to experience and to embody our belovedness, so that on Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday, as we journey with Jesus toward the cross, in all of those experiences, we might be ready for our own resurrection and to be resurrected ourselves, so that we might be different in the world, freeing ourselves of guilt and shame, freeing ourselves of the conditions of the world, and stepping more fully into the way that God sees us, and knowing that as God sees us, we can live that way. So may we today step into this belovedness and pray for the ways in which our acts of service may come from a passion and come from that place of being loved. May we see the difference that that makes today and in the days to come. I pray these things in Jesus' name. God bless you. Cathedral of Hope, United Church of Christ. Amen.
On which the
Friends, again, I thank you for joining us here at Cathedral of Hope as we continue this series on how we are beloved. And I hope that you know just how beloved you are. So as we finish this service this day, I pray that God's blessing would be upon you, that the blessing of God, known to us as Creator, Savior, and Holy Spirit, will be with us and remain with us now and evermore. Amen.